it's April with April Rising, and today I want to talk about teenagers. I was one at some point many years ago. I have raised a few. I have adult children, and I just felt like the most misunderstood teenager. And I'm not sure if this message is for the teenagers out there or if this message is for the parents of teenagers out there. Maybe it's for both. I study and I try really hard to look at things from all perspectives because I think it's very ignorant for us to look at any situation or any person one sided, our side. We see it one way, and I think that it's ignorant to not try to see it from another point of view or take into account things that we don't know, unknown data. So, as a teenager, I was always misunderstood. And, don't get me wrong, I understand that teenagers are going through hormonal things and body type of things. But I think that we use that as an excuse for the behaviors that we're seeing. And what I recall as a teenager is that is when I started to have my own thoughts, my own perspective. I started seeing things differently. I feel like when you're a young child, you have no other choice but to somewhat idolize your parents. You have no other known life that could be out there. Like, you just know what you know, and that's inside of your house, and that's all you know. And you have friends, sure, but there's not that many sleepovers. There's like, you don't experience other ways that other families function. And then you become a teenager, and your friends become your life, right? I know all you teenagers agree with that. Your friends become your life. But then you start realizing that, well, my friends' families function differently. And either you like or dislike them, like how those families function. But you start learning things. You start learning perspectives. You start seeing how your friends' parents handle things versus how your parents handle things. And then you see how they work or how their house rules are and how things are, and you start comparing. And what happens is teenagers start thinking for themselves, and what they try to do is they try to express their thoughts and their ways of thinking to their parents. And maybe they don't agree with some of the ways that the house is being ran that they live in. And what happens? They start speaking up. Now, what happens then is the parents are like, oh my gosh, I have such a rebellious child. Do you? Do you have a rebellious child? Or do you have a child who is becoming educated, taking new data and processing it and saying, hey, mom, hey, dad, you don't treat me very right. You're mean. You don't listen. You don't this. You don't spend time with me. You don't clean up. You don't make me dinner. Like, and that may seem demanding, or that may seem, like something that you don't like, and that's your opinion. But you have to take into effect that that teenager has now received new data by going to their friend's house and seeing different ways of life, and they may not agree with you. And teenagers have a right to speak up. They're entering into adulthood. They are going to be stepping into that part in life where they have to start making their own decisions. So we want to encourage them to think for themselves. We want them to take new data, process it, and then have an opinion on that. So stop being so offended when they call you out. My girls, they're adults now. I loved it when they were teenagers. I loved the teenage years. I loved it so much I became a youth pastor because I wanted my house full of teenagers all the time, because they all feel misunderstood. They all felt like they didn't belong. They all felt like they couldn't be themselves, or, they were just so confused on their own ways of feeling on the inside. They needed a safe place. And so I challenge you to, again, have a different perspective. If you are raising teenagers and you think that your teenager is so rebellious that maybe they're just taking in new data and processing it and they don't like the things that you do and they have a right to have an opinion. Now, I've always told my kids, hey, you have a right to your opinion, but you don't have a right to be disrespectful. So, teenagers, you have a right to your opinion, but you don't have a right to be disrespectful. You need to honor your mother and father. That's who God chose to raise you. If you like it or not, that's who God chose to raise you. You don't have to agree with everything that they do, but if they are providing for you, even in my situation, y'all, I was in a very abusive household. And there are sometimes I hear other kids how they speak to their parents, and I was like, I didn't even talk to my parents like that, or any adult really. And so I think that you have every right to have an opinion, and you have every right to take in data and compare and things that you like and don't like. Take that and utilize it and use it so when you step into adulthood, you're like, this is how I want to live my life. This is the direction I want to go. And take all of the data and the good things and the bad things that you like or you dislike and either apply them, learn from them, whatever it is, but stay focused on yourself and how you want to conduct your life, and then who you're going to become and who God created you to be. He gave you these situations. He gave you these parents. He gave you that life for a reason. I know sometimes it's frustrating. I know in my own life how much I hated it. I would do everything I could to stay out of my house. Everything I could. I got a job. I started working and working at 14, had an actual job at a fast food restaurant by the time I was 15. I wanted anything I could do to just not be there. I played sports. I did whatever I could. Whatever I could. So I get that part. But now I've taken those lessons and I've taken those things and all those negative things that I didn't like in the house that I grew up in. When I had children, I said, I am not going to have my children experience that life. So I was able to pull the things that I didn't like and say, I didn't like that, so I'm not going to do it because I experienced it, instead of unbeknowingly doing that to my kids. So it's not always that you have rebellious children. It's not always that they're bad kids. It's not anything like that. They're entering into a time where they're simply thinking for themselves, and parents don't like that because so far, their whole life, their children just did what they were told and didn't really question it. And now all of a sudden they're questioning and the parents are freaking out. Answer the questions. Be humble and know that you're not perfect and there are areas that you need to improve on. Be quick to apologize to your children. We screw up. It is what it is. Like, we're not perfect. Be quick to apologize to them. But love them unconditionally. Love them without conditions. Without, I will love you if. I will love you but. I hate that. I hate that I felt as a teenager that I had to do a certain expectation to feel like I was loved and accepted. It causes lifelong damage because now to this day I still feel like I have to do certain things, or I have to live a certain way, or I have to look a certain way to be loved and accepted. Don't do that to your kids. If they're calling you out, be humble enough to listen. You don't have to agree, but at least listen and let them feel heard. And I know this message is one that probably stings a lot of people because they're just like, well, I this, and they, pat themselves on the back for what great parents they are. And I'm not saying you're not a great parent, but your children have now experienced other ways and they may not agree with how you make dinner. They may not agree with going out to eat all the time, or they may like the way that this family does this tradition or that family does that tradition. And who are we to not be open to listening to what our children have or want or have seen or witnessed? They're a part of your family and they should be able to put input into the family unit, or else you're going to chase your children away. And then when they reach adulthood, which is the majority of their life, they're not going to be in your life anymore. So tread carefully.